go. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Rayshard Brooks was laid to rest today at a private funeral service in Atlanta at Ebenezer Baptist Church. We'll show you and give you all the details. Dr. Anthony Fauci testified today at a House hearing on COVID-19. We'll show you what he said today and bring our own doctor to give you the latest on the coronavirus. A huge spike in numbers in Texas and California. Senate Democrats indicated that they plan to block a police reform bill authored by Senator Tim Scott. Speaking of that, he criticizes the Democrats from the floor of the Senate. Senator Kamala Harris smacks down Texas Senator John Cornyn. Wait until we'll show you that exchange. Also here in Washington, D.C., big police presence today as police narrowed Black Lives Matter Plaza for protesting. We'll show you that video. Also, New York and Kentucky have primaries today. We'll talk about whether it's as bad as predicted when it comes to voting. Body cams released by South Carolina police show officers shooting a dead black man who was handcuffed. Wait until you see the footage. And a Facebook post looking for black union editors brings out the racists in the production industry. We'll talk with the author of the post. Also, we'll talk with the attorney who represents the last survivor of the Tulsa Massacre in 1921. Mississippi governor is not open to a proposal to have two state flags. Walmart just announced they will no longer allow the display of the Mississippi flag as long as that Confederate emblem is on the flag. Plus, we'll tell you about a proposal to rename the Edmund Pettus Bridge after Congressman John Lewis. Plus, 3 crazy-ass white folks today, including one Karen who just lost her ever-loving mind. Oh, my God. Wait until y'all see this. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
A memorial service for Rayshard Brooks was held today at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, the historic church where Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once preached. King's daughter, the Reverend Bernice King, delivered remarks at his funeral.
If we miss this moment, we will find ourselves returning again and again to a pathway of chaos and self-destruction. So to all of my activists, to all of my organizers and people of goodwill, we cannot stop our cry for justice and our fight for freedom. We cannot stop our demonstrations until our voices are heard and our demands for police reform are met. We must not stop until white supremacist policies and practices are no longer the order of today. We will not stop until voter suppression is a thing of the past. We will not stop until reparations sets us on a path to be free at last. We will not stop until our leaders are no longer polarized between Democrat and Republican, but are united in a clarion call for healing and just and equitable policies that overcome the racial disparities. Don't you stop until Black Lives Matter in every state, in every city, in every hamlet, in every village, in every sector of American society, and ultimately the world. And I close that in honor of Ahmaud Arbery, in honor of Breonna Taylor, in honor of George Floyd, in honor of Rayshard Brooks and countless others. Don't stop until it matters that dignity, justice, and equity are a reality for all Black lives. Rayshard Brooks' death will not be in vain, because justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
The private funeral took place with 350 family members in the pews, all wearing white. Many wore masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Friends and a cousin also spoke between video tributes. The eulogy was delivered by Senior Pastor Reverend Raphael Warnock. Folks, speaking of coronavirus, Dr. Anthony Fauci testified before a House hearing on COVID-19 response today and said he is opposed to what Donald Trump says about testing. Here's some of his testimony.
However, in other areas of the country, we're now seeing a disturbing surge of infections that looks like it's a combination, but one of the things is an increase in community spread. And that's something that I'm really quite concerned about that. And you know that this has been something that's been in the press over the past couple of days, where we were going down from 30,000 to 25 to 20, and now we sort of stayed about flat, and now we're going up. A couple of days ago, there were 30,000 new infections. That's very troublesome to me. The way you address that, and I've said this over and over again, is you have to have the manpower, the system, the testing to identify, isolate, and contact trace in an effective way so that when you see those increases, you can understand where they're coming from and you can do something about them. Right now, the next couple of weeks are going to be critical in our ability to address those surgings that we're seeing in Florida, in Texas, in Arizona, and in other states. They're not the only ones that are having a difficulty. Bottom line, Mr. Chairman, it's a mixed bag. Some good and some now we have a problem with.
All right, now I'm going to have to ask about the president, because you talked about testing and how important it is. And Admiral Giroir and I know how important it is. At his rally over the weekend, the president said, and I quote, "When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please," unquote. And this morning he said he meant this. So Dr. Fauci, do you agree with that? Does it make sense that to safely open our economy, we should be limiting the number of tests rather than ensuring that anyone who needs a test can get one? And you don't have to mention the president, I did, but tell us about the testing. And
So I, as a member of the task force,
your microphone is on.
I, as a member of the task force, and my colleagues on the task force, to my knowledge, I know for sure, but to my knowledge, none of us have ever been told to slow down on testing. That just is a fact. In fact, we will be doing more testing, as you've heard from Admiral Giroir, not only testing to specifically identify people in the identify, isolate, and contact trace, but also much more surveillance if you want to get your arms around and understand exactly what's going on in community spread. So it's the opposite. We're going to be doing more testing, not less.
Now, of course, when you said they made the point about, well, what did Trump say earlier? Well, this is what this nut said outside of the White House today. Listen.
I don't kid. Let me just tell you, let me make it clear. We have got the greatest testing program anywhere in the world. We test better than anybody in the world. Our tests are the best in the world, and we have the most of them. By having more tests, we find more cases. We did 25 million tests. Think of that, 25 million. If you look at other countries, they did 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, big countries. We did 25 million, way more by double, triple, quadruple any other country. Therefore, we test, we're gonna have more cases. By having more cases, it sounds bad, but actually what it is we're finding people. Many of those people aren't sick or very little. You know, they may be young people. But what's happened is because of all of the cases that we find, we have a very low mortality rate, just about the best in the world. So that's the advantage to the testing, along with other things. But just remember this, the reason we have more cases than other countries is because our testing is so much. Other countries, listen, other countries do very little testing by comparison. So we're gonna do this year, right now, up till yesterday, I think they told me, we're over 25 million tests. Other countries are at 2 million, 3 million. Here's what I say. Testing is a double-edged sword. In one way, it tells you you have cases. In another way, you find out where the cases are, and you do a good job. We are doing a great job. We have never been credited for it. We're doing the best testing job anywhere in the world. We're doing.
Okay, I don't have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I mean, if you want to hear a bunch of just mumbo jumbo, you just actually heard it right there. Bottom line is, Donald Trump has not wanted there to be testing. We're seeing spikes in Texas, in California, record highs. And not only that, what you're seeing, you're also seeing folks sitting here now. The governor of Texas is now alarmed by the rising. Dude, what do you think was going to happen when you reopen a state? The never Trump was at Project Lincoln, the Lincoln Project. They've been real quick to hit Donald Trump. Here's their latest ad.
Most deceptive, lying president in history finally told the truth. Somehow, it was more shocking than all his deceptions.
When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Slow the testing down? Slow down our chance to save tens of thousands of lives. Slow down our understanding of where COVID is and how it's spreading. Slow down the steps to reopen the economy. Every single expert told him to test more and test faster. And now we know his response.
Slow the testing down, please.
That's why this November, more than ever, the choice is clear. It's America or Trump.
That is not hard to figure out at all, folks. We're going to go to, let me break the numbers down here. As of today, according to the CDC, 2,302,288 cases of COVID-19. We have 26,643 new cases. 120,333 people have died. 410 of those deaths are new. My panel today is Amisha Cross, political analyst and Democratic strategist, Melik Abdul, Republican strategist, Brittany Lee Lewis, political analyst. I want to start with you, Amisha. I mean, look, Donald Trump, I was playing. First of all, he makes the comment, and the staff, he was joking. Then he comes back, no, I don't kid. But then we're like, well, no, he actually was joking, but then Kelly, McEnany today said, well, no, he wasn't joking, but it was sarcasm. You don't joke with a disease that's killed 120,000 Americans. That's not what you do, Amisha.
Absolutely. And Roland, we all know that President Trump was not joking. If anything, he has been consistent about COVID from the beginning. He never saw it as a threat. He talked about it being a hoax. He tried to prevent there being testing from jump. He did not want people to have access to testing. That's something that he has held steady on since March. And when, lo and behold, it becomes true that he opened states and pushed to have states open way too soon, and the cases went up, now he wants to continue suppressing testing to show that, the cases aren't what they actually are. And I think that it's extremely problematic because, one, he doesn't want to take any level of responsibility for the role he's played in people having a false sense of security, but also in ignoring all of the warning signs, ignoring all of the precautions that have been given from his own team that he designed and put together for coronavirus, in addition to not paying attention to other nations. We know that President Trump is someone who wants America to be as isolationist as possible. But we've seen signs of waves increasing abroad for at least the past 2 months. So he knew that it was going to happen here should he open the economy, open the government up way too soon, yet he pushed states to do it anyway, with those call-outs on Twitter, with the disrespect to governors that refuse to do it. And we're seeing the results of that every single day. McEnany, to her credit, is someone who is actually very bright, but she is also someone who is towing the line for this president. And she will say that it's a joke. She will say that it's sarcasm, because what else can she do? President Trump is tweeting day in and day out. He's shouting to whoever will listen that testing is not necessary, that at the end of the day, we're doing more testing now, so more testing means more people have COVID-19. What more people having COVID-19 actually means is that we allow for these states to open far too soon. He pressured them to do so, and now we're seeing upticks, particularly across the South. the areas that he himself has, touted as being splendid, has wanted to host events in. And the question remains, when will he actually start listening to the science? When will he put people's lives ahead of his own ego? When will we see this president actually take COVID-19 seriously?
Malik, you don't joke around with this. This is real. You're the president of the United States. You don't play games with this by saying, I told them to slow the testing down.
I agree with that. I don't think this is something that the president should be joking about at all. But as we heard, to really clarify, as we heard from Dr. Fauci, that's if we believe Dr. Fauci is the sage and the trustworthy source that we've said he has been since this COVID crisis actually began. Donald Trump actually did not say that to his staff, that they should stop the testing. That came out of Fauci's mouth himself, in addition to, I believe that was the CDC director who was sitting beside Dr. Fauci. So both of them said that they have not heard under any circumstance the president had ordered anyone to stop testing. So we know that there are definitely more testing made.
Why say it at a rally? Why say it?
As I said, that's not something that the president should say. But we're either going to believe what Donald Trump said and what they said that he's joking about, or we're not going to believe Dr. Fauci. So
no. But if you're the president, why do you even say it? I mean, doesn't that speak to, again, somebody who is not fit for the job, that you would stand at a rally and would literally joke about? You don't even play with that stuff. 120,000 are dead.
Well, you're arguing with yourself. I said at the beginning that it's not something that Donald Trump should have said. So you going back to it doesn't change anything that I said about it.
I'm going back to it because, again, here's the problem. The problem is that
you didn't get the answer that you wanted to get.
Malik, you're wrong.
Of course you did.
No, Malik, you're wrong. Here's the situation we're in.
I'm not wrong.
Excuse me.
Hold on. That he should have said.
This is the problem that we're.
Hold on. Agreeing with you?
Hold on.
Malik,
stop.
Well, I'm just wondering, am I wrong agreeing with you?
Malik, stop. This is the problem. Malik, stop. This is the problem.
Roland,
this is the problem. Okay.
What you said,
here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
No. Here's the deal, Brittany. This is the deal.
Of course.
We're living in an age of trust. We're living in a situation where there are people who believe that this is a hoax. You have people out here who are saying, oh, no need to wear a mask. What's the big deal here? You see what's happening in Texas. Governor Greg Abbott, Republican. This governor ignored what Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner was saying. He ignored what the mayor and the county judge in Dallas was saying, and others. And they said, Governor, go slow. There are too many people who are believing this is a hoax. He doesn't do that. All of a sudden, numbers in Texas are spiking. The problem with Donald Trump joking, even though Fauci comes today and cleans it up, and the CDC director, the problem with him even making the comment is what it does, Brittany, it reinforces for those people who really think this is no big deal. And that's a problem for our hospitals. I've seen messages where hospitals in Houston are telling folks, discharge your patients because we're going to need these beds for coronavirus victims. Hospitals in Miami and other parts of Florida. And so to stand there and even be flippant with this, that is shameful conduct, Brittany.
You're right, Roland. It's absolutely petrifying. I mean, outside of his rhetoric, the president won't even wear a mask at bare minimum to be a leader for the general American public. And it's very clear that he is not taking this seriously. He continues to put more American lives at risk, some of whom are his own constituents. And most importantly, he's looking for someone to blame. That's part of this story. He knows that he's failed. He knows that there has been a botched response. He knows that it's caused a wildly and irresponsible amount of lives that have been lost. And he knows that he is responsible for that as the president of the United States. We know that his response is challenging American exceptionalism. We know that Europe is struggling with whether or not they're even going to let Americans in, which again, not only does it challenge American exceptionalism, but it challenges his ability as a leader. not only the leader of the United States, but oftentimes people believe that the United States is really a leader for the globe, and we are not that right now. And it is Trump's fault. And now it's almost as if he is doubling down so that he can lay the blame elsewhere.
Malik, how can one trust anything that comes out of his mouth if he doesn't take something like this seriously?
Well, from my perspective, I wouldn't listen to Donald Trump or any president as far as how to take something as serious as COVID-19. I wouldn't listen to what any president said. I would listen to my doctor. I would listen to health professionals. I would listen to Fauci. I would listen to many others. I definitely get the idea that the president should be the standard bearer for this and where he's guiding people in a different direction. But for my purposes, as a supporter of Donald Trump, I would not under any circumstance listen to what Donald Trump or a President Obama said about anything related to this. I would have conversations with my doctor. So whether or not I actually contracted COVID-19, I wouldn't listen to what Donald Trump or Fauci or any of them said about what type of treatment I should get.
First of all, no.
First
of all, let's be real clear here. We're not speaking of treatment. This is not treatment. This is simply for someone who's being flippant about testing. See, Amisha, that's the little word salad right here. Oh, listen to your doctor about. I'm talking to Amisha. Actually, first of all, you answered it, and so I'm moving on to Amisha. Amisha, see, here's the deal here. We're not even talking about treatment. We're not saying take hydrochloroquine. We're not saying, drink a lot of water. No, this is simply something as so basic as should we be testing? And then to say, well, the more we test, there are more cases. Yes, which is what people were telling you 3 months ago, that had we done massive testing, we would have a much better understanding of how significant this virus is. When you have folks like D.L. Hughley and his son both test positive for COVID-19, yet they're asymptomatic, here we are almost at the end of June going into July, and we still don't have a real strong understanding of how pervasive this is in American cities, because we had someone who has yet to truly take this seriously. That is the problem, Amisha.
No, you're absolutely correct. The problem from jump was this president lacking an understanding of or respect for the science, for those medical professionals who were telling him to act otherwise. What we have seen is President Trump continually deny the fact that more testing needed to happen. More testing needed to happen back in March, early April. What we've seen is that testing does matter. What Trump has done from the beginning was to dismantle the testing process. He made it harder for people to get them. He also never really wanted to showcase how many people had COVID-19 or where the spread was occurring. And the more you test, the more we would find out that information. For a president who has gone and created a mission for himself and his administration to show that COVID-19 is not really affecting America at the rates that it is, that he has it under control, it didn't help that narrative to actually have these tests be available and for people to readily take them. So there's an access issue, there remains an access issue, and there is also a point for him to continue to try to ignore the fact that COVID-19 is spreading and the fact that it exists in a lot of the states where he acted like it did not, and right now affecting populations that he initially continued to tell people it wouldn't. So from jump, Trump has lied about the spread of COVID-19. He has not tried to be in the least bit effective in terms of mitigating it, and he has continually gone about ignoring the science. And what we're seeing right now is that everything that he has done has actually made the spread worse. It has made people have a false sense of security, not only about wearing masks, but also about, returning back to their daily activities, returning back to that normal before they actually would be able to healthily do so. And we're seeing our nation be crippled because of it.
Malik, early on, when there were people who were on cruise ships, Donald Trump did not want them to be taken off because he said that's going to cause an increase in the number of cases. Well, that's actually what happens. And so what you have here is somebody who is not wanted to be very truthful with the American public on the situation in terms of where we are when it comes to our numbers. And so it makes no sense whatsoever to be fighting testing or not wanting to properly account for people. Any infectious disease expert will tell you, you need to be able to have much more widespread testing to understand the depths of this virus, to then know how you are to proceed. As long as you are living in ignorance and flying blindly, then you don't have a true understanding of what's happening with COVID-19 in the United States.
Well, that's exactly what the experts said at the press conferences that they essentially had almost every single day. So this is, I mean, I agree with that. But Fauci, Birx, and the many others have talked about this very thing, how ramping up testing would be the thing that they would need in order to kind of get a handle on this. But Dr. Fauci was asked today in the congressional hearing whether or not he regrets not telling the public, informing the public that we should start wearing masks earlier. I think this was back in early March. And he said he didn't because of the fact that they were not, he was concerned about PPE and whether or not the hospitals would suffer from the amount of people, the deluge of people who would be going into whether it's hospitals or even testing positive for the virus. So as I've said on your show many times, that's something that the experts have talked about, and to a person, each of them has said that this is something that we definitely need. So I don't think that the people who are around Donald Trump are actually saying this. A lot of this focus has been on Donald Trump, which is why I've said that we should listen to the experts. You don't have to listen to Donald Trump. I get he's the leader of our country, but you don't have to listen to Donald Trump. And I don't know anyone who, I don't know anyone who relies on what Donald Trump or any president says as far as their health decisions. Because for me, this is a health decision. This is not just something, a political football. We're talking about health. I'm not going to listen to anyone.
But this actually goes beyond listening to your doctor. And I want to bring in Dr. Idris Jamal Abdur-Rahman with the Women's Healthcare Group of Illinois. Dr. Abdur-Rahman, this is the point here, which is critically important. You can't simply reduce this to listen to your doctor about your health, because when you're talking about this coronavirus epidemic, you have one hand, you heard Malik talk about PPE. Well, that's where Donald Trump and the federal government plays a role, because you need to be able to properly look at in terms of what do we have in terms of available PPE. Donald Trump kept lying to the public by saying, "Oh, it was left barren," when in fact a report came out today showing there were 16,000 ventilators that were actually in the federal stockpile. And so you can't say, Doc, don't listen to Donald Trump, when if you are the president and you are responsible for how the federal government responds to this in getting out PPE to states, those states getting them to hospitals and ventilators and testing, if you are denying the reality of all of this from the beginning, then all of that ends up being a problem.
Absolutely. And this is the thing, what people don't understand, when COVID first hit the scene, it's called the novel coronavirus for a reason. It's novel. We don't know much about it. But you know, being on the front line was frightening. Yes, as a physician, as a healthcare provider, I know kind of what to do. Again, it's novel, so we don't know everything. But you need support. No one person can do this alone. And that support has to come from on high. We literally, we were in the hospital with COVID-positive patients wearing ponchos from Six Flags. They were kind enough to donate it. Thank you very much, Six Flags. But that was not proper PPE. We were wearing the same N95 masks for months. That, again, is not proper PPE. That is not the proper way to wear PPE. We did not have the guidance that we needed from the top. And without that, no matter what you do or don't know, if you don't have the materials that you need, if you don't have the equipment that you need, you cannot take proper care of patients and you cannot take care of yourself. And I think that is the fallacy in saying that, you know, don't listen to the president, listen to your doctor. That's true, of course, listen to your doctor. But being real, you're going to be in the room with your doctor for 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, whereas the president has that bully pulpit. He's going to be on Twitter. He's going to be on the news saying the nonsense that he says 24/7. And so the discussions I have with patients are discussions I shouldn't even have. We should all come with an understanding that this is a virus, this is highly contagious, this is dangerous. We should all be there, and then we can move from that on to what we need to do. But when your first discussion with the patient is, does this really exist? Is this a hoax? Is this something that is being created? You don't really have the time that you need to actually take proper care of that patient when their knowledge base is starting so far behind. So yeah, absolutely. The president is a president. He's not a doctor. But the president is somebody that sets the tone. And we would hope he would be somebody who would be getting information from doctors, listening to that information, and then passing it along to the American people, because he can reach way more people than any one physician can.
And when you also are talking about when you have someone who openly has disdain for masks, who will tell journalists, hey, take it off, don't worry about the person next to you is not concerned about it. You're going, okay, you do know that's the one thing that we're not supposed to be doing. And again, Doc, surely it has to anger you to see him at a rally being flippant about a virus that has killed 120,000 people.
You know, I have to tell you, Roland, there were so many days when I was almost in tears, because it is truly like a tale of two Americas. Like, there are people that seem to think that this does not really exist, or it's not as bad as you think it is. I'm telling you, in my hospital, I'm in the northern suburbs of Chicago, we have an ICU that has 26 or 30 beds. There was a point in March, April, and May when our ICU was full, and we had not one, not two, but 3 overflow areas that were full. And these were patients, like, literally, I was on call one Saturday night, and I literally started crying in the call room because I heard code blue, code blue, code blue, 5 code blues in one night. And yeah, when people pretend like this is not something that's serious, it absolutely is. And it's not just older people that become ill. Middle-aged people, younger people become ill. But let's just say it were only older people that become ill. I mean, we can't just sacrifice people. We can't just sacrifice people and pretend like they're not important in society. So yes, when you see Donald Trump not wearing a mask, not only encouraging people to not wear masks, but bullying people that wear masks, it is infuriating, because, again, people can say, oh, he's not a doctor, he's the president, but for better or for worse, people look to their president as a leader. And it is infuriating when the science is so clear. This is a virus. It is spread through respiratory secretions, from your mouth, from your nose. Wearing a mask will prevent 90+% of that transmission. And then to not only not wear a mask, but then squeeze people into these arenas where they're yelling and screaming and hollering on top of each other. It is, you know, I mean, in one sense, it's mind-blowing. I was talking to my wife, like, 3.5 years ago, this would have been mind-blowing. Now it's just like, this is Donald Trump doing what Donald Trump does, you know, and that's kind of a sad state to be in as well. But it is, as a physician, it is absolutely infuriating that he is allowed to get away with this, and the sycophants that support him. It's mind-numbing. It truly is.
Well, it is certainly difficult, I'm sure, for those first responders, the people who are on the front lines who are trying to care for people, not having enough PPE, not all those months having to wear the same mask weeks at a time, even though that violated all medical protocols. And again, that's what happens when you don't take this thing seriously. And let's not forget, Donald Trump said, oh, this is just one person from China. Then it was, oh, we have 15 cases, we'll be soon down to 0. Oh, you have Larry Kudlow, who said, oh, no, we've got this as completely under control, as airtight as possibly can. And now, June 23rd, 120,000 people are dead, and we're seeing dramatic increases in Texas, in California, in Florida, in other states. This is not going away. So it would be nice if Donald Trump could take it seriously. Dr. Abdul Rahman, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, let's go to the breaking news out of Kentucky. Today is primary day, and we told you the problem there. 3,700, normally 3,700 polling locations in Kentucky. Today, just 200. This is video from the folks at Black Voters Matter. People who were go to my iPad, please. These are people who were in line, and then they locked the doors at 6 o'clock. Look at all of these people. It makes no sense whatsoever. But just moments ago, Charles Booker, who is running for the United States Senate on the Democratic side, filed an injunction to extend the voting time. According to Black Voters Matter, extension has been granted and doors are now open. Power to the people. We're not leaving until every vote is counted. How in the hell, Melik, can you have a state knowing full well you're going from 3,700 polling locations down to 200, would then say, yeah, close the doors at 6 o'clock when all of these people literally are standing in line? What the hell is with people in Kentucky?
I don't agree with closing the door at all. But what I do know that this is also something similar to what we saw in Georgia and here in D.C., where in the ward where I live, I think we typically have about 20 or so precincts. Well, 3 were open. 3. And so there were people who were voting on election day here, June 2nd, I believe it was.
Melly, how many? You said, hold up. You said 3?
3.
Follow me here. That was 3 in your precinct, right?
No, in my ward.
I'm sorry, in your ward. Here's the problem here. There is 1 in the entire county. They would have loved to have 3. You said 3 in 1 ward. In Louisville, 1 polling location for more than 660,000 people in the entire county.
Absolutely, that's a problem. But again, my point is, and this is something that I said on your show before, is that I think it was the Bipartisan Justice Center came out with a study talking about the difficulty with this mail-in voting system. I believe in Kentucky, I believe they actually still had mail-in voting, but just as we saw here in D.C., yes, there were definitely mail-in voting. For the first time, I voted absentee. I don't know if it was eventually counted, but I do know that I voted absentee, but there were people who were in lines as of 11 o'clock. Now, those things don't make the news here because it's D.C. and people kind of give D.C. short shrift, but these things were happening and there were people, the Black Lives Matter activists and many others who were talking about the fact that the mayor participated in voter suppression here in D.C. That's not excusing what happened in Kentucky, but this isn't something that's particularly isolated to Kentucky. And it seems as if a lot of this, as that report said in the Bipartisan Justice Center, that in a time of a pandemic, moving to things like an all mail-in voting system, or even trying to restructure the elections to accommodate the social distancing that was required, is something that is extremely difficult to pull off. So I'm not excusing what happened in Kentucky, but I'm glad this actually happened now, as opposed to around Super Tuesday, when a lot of this was, when we knew about the virus, but a lot of things weren't taken. So at least this is happening later in the election cycle as opposed to earlier in the election cycle.
But Brittany, first of all, here's more video here. Brittany, here's the problem, though. The problem, though, is that you have, for the most part, you have Republicans who are fighting expanding mail-in balloting across the country. We saw what happened in Wisconsin, where they absolutely fought that. Now, what we also seeing, due to this injunction, I'm going to, in a second, they actually, here's actually a video of people actually being the doors open. They extended it to 6:30. Thank goodness here. But it makes no sense. You have a Republican Secretary of State. You have a Democratic governor. And if you know you're going to have fewer polling locations, don't you think it makes sense if you're the state to go to court before Election Day and say, we need to extend this because we know we're not going to be able to handle the people turning out by normal polling hours?
I mean, Roland, we know what's happening here. This is voter suppression at its finest. And they're not really trying to allow folks, especially a place where the majority of the voters are going to be Black, to be able to be at the location and to be able to cast their vote, which is their right to do. But we've seen voter suppression, especially from the Republican Party for centuries. I mean, this is ever since we were, quote unquote, given the right to vote. We have seen voter suppression across the board. So I'm no way surprised.
In fact, I'm sitting here looking at a tweet that this is Jose Andres. He tweeted this, Amisha. Many people now locked out of voting in Louisville. This is 31 minutes ago. Doors closed at 6 p.m. sharp in Kentucky. They told his team they arrived before, but traffic was backed up getting into the exposition center, and 30 minutes just to get to parking lot. So normally what happens is, obviously you have to be in line. Well, it's a little hard to be in line if you're sitting on the freeway, and then if you get there, you got to park, and that's taking 30 minutes. I mean, this is just crazy. This is disenfranchising voters by not giving them a shot to have, again, in the county, more than 660,000 people in one polling location. Make sure your audio. Make sure you're not muted.
I was definitely muted. I was saying that you're absolutely right, Roland. This is disenfranchisement on steroids. We saw a precursor of it in Georgia, and we're seeing it happen all over again in Kentucky. I pray that we'll have a lot of this figured out before November, but honestly, I don't believe that we will. We have an administration that is fighting tooth and nail against mail-in ballots because Trump does not want African Americans to use their voices at the ballot box in November because he knows it won't work in his favor. And when you see something like this in Kentucky, where the majority of people who are being disenfranchised are Black people, and the acknowledgement has to be that they knew that this election process was coming. The state, the officials that were in charge of this should have made it very easy for people to have access. The point is to make voting easy, not to make it more difficult. Shutting down polling places eradicates the right to vote for those who are trying to make this happen for them. There are people who are holding this primary near and dear, individuals who recognize just how important this election cycle is and want their voices heard. When you only have a small portion of places that you can go in an entire county, that is a problem, because not only are there traffic issues, there's also these folks are in line for hours. We still know that COVID-19 is out there. People are trying to be as respectful as possible of the science, and they're still trying to carry out their civic duty. We know that there's a lot of training that has to go into the process of mail-in ballots. We know that we still have to make sure that those mail-in ballots are counted and that free postage is given for those who are utilizing them. But right now, we also need to focus on polling places being open. This mass closure of polling places across various areas in the South is not by chance. This is by structure, and this is done on purpose. And we need to make sure that it is eradicated before November hits. Because sadly, I think that we're going to see more and more upticks in these types of issues the closer we get.
This was a video posted 14 minutes ago by Charles Booker, the brother, of course, who is running for the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate. Watch this.
Jefferson County, good news. The doors have been reopened at the fairgrounds. Stay in line. You will be able to vote. If you were wondering, if you were thinking about turning around, don't do it. The doors have been reopened. Stay in line. You will be able to vote. Make sure you do.
Joining us right now is Reverend Dr. William Barber, repairs of the breach. Reverend Barber, it is shameful that people had to sit here and slam their hands on the doors just to be able to vote. It's an abomination that Kentucky, the Secretary of State there, Republican Secretary of State, did not anticipate this here and not be proactive. Earlier in the day, we're looking at videos of massive car lines, folks trying to be able to park, not even getting to the location, and then Booker gets the injunction and they only extend it for 30 minutes.
You're right, Roland, and the Secretary of State, the Republican, did anticipate it. In fact, he knows that they just lost the governor's race. The Poor People's Campaign was huge last time in that race, organizing people. 3 counties turned from Trump counties to Democratic counties, never called the governor's name, but we turned out voters. This is the same Secretary of State who used to be connected with the governor, if I'm not mistaken, who arrested members of the Poor People's Campaign when we came to deliver a petition, but allowed white supremacists to come on the Capitol with guns. We've seen this, though. I want to have people understand, since 2010, there have been 26 states that have done voter suppression. Hear that now. Since 2010, not since Donald Trump has been in office. One of the ways they have done it that we've not talked about it is this reducing of polling places. In North Carolina, the last 2016, we beat them on everything, but they reduced the polling places by 150 across the state. We beat Trump down ticket, but we didn't beat Trump because the numbers were dropped because of the fewer numbers of voting places. So one of the things we got to talk about now is if every lawyer that's concerned about justice has got to come off the sideline after this primary. I'm hearing, Roland, they may not even know the totals until June 30th. I just got a text from Kentucky. We need to come off the sidelines. We got to fight in the court. And number one, get early voting, not just mail-in voting, but early in-person voting. And then we have to have more and more voting sites in November. So we need early voting and sites in November. And then we're going to have to work hard in all of our organizations, making sure as many of our people do mail-in ballot. They know they're in trouble. This election, not just for Trump, but in the future. And so it's an all-out battle, but it's been put in place. They've been trying this, I almost cursed, trying this crap since 2010. It's just being exacerbated now.
This is a photo here from Graham Ambrose. Folks, this is the photo showing you the early voting, the voting location today in Louisville. It took place in their convention center. The thing, Reverend Barber, that people say, it is designed to frustrate people. If they see these lines, if they hear, it takes me 30 minutes to park, y'all, I'm not wasting my time. The people who got to go to work, the folks who can't afford to take the day off. I mean, this is the fundamental problem we're talking about, where people want to be able to participate in democracy, but they're making it difficult to do so.
Exactly, and that's why we need to fight for the whole weekend prior to the election to be early voting. Friday, Saturday. I mean, we need, actually in North Carolina, we have 2 weeks, but all across the country, there should be no reason between now and November that we don't have Friday voting, Saturday voting, Sunday afternoon voting, right on up to the election day. Election should no longer be a day. Election should be a season. Now, Roland, I want to say something right now that may look some people a little upset, but you know how we do. There's a lot of conversation right now. People saying we want to make Juneteenth a holiday. We want to make Juneteenth a holiday. I want to say this. First of all, slavery ended December 6th, 1965. Juneteenth was when they found out about the Emancipation Proclamation. But before we get into holidays, why not, first of all, make voting day a holiday? And then if we want to do something, say, between now and the next Juneteenth, we're demanding reparations, we're demanding restoration of the Voting Rights Act, we're demanding health care, we're demanding living wages. And then on that day, we could make something out of it because we would have obtained some policy shifts. I don't want folks to turn any of our attention right now into a day when we're in a battle. We're in a battle for the vote, when we're in a battle to keep us from being disenfranchised. And I want folks to hear that in a lot of love. Everything we have now should be turned towards fighting for access to this ballot in November. Everything we have right now. All the marching in the street. I heard Pastor Warnock say today at the funeral of Rashad, there's another march happening, and that's November 3rd. There's another march happening. Those are the marches wherever states have early voting. And that's what we've got to focus on in a major way as we go forward.
All right, then, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. It is, again, folks, we're monitoring what's happening there. Let me know, folks, we have Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. They are on the ground there in Kentucky. They've been there. They shouted out Ariana Grande, who had coffee and food delivered to the folks who were actually waiting in line. This is what's it's been going on. I mean, again, they were there on the ground in Georgia when we saw the drama happening there in Georgia. We're seeing the same thing in Kentucky. There is tremendous voter enthusiasm that is taking place all across the country. This, of course, was a video. Go to that Black Voters Matter released about 8 hours ago, where they've been going all across these states. Take a listen. Do we have Latasha, folks? All right, folks, we're trying to get her online there. Melik, right now, sitting on, is she ready? All right, Latasha, let's go. Latasha Brown, you there?
I'm here. How are you?
Great. Y'all are there in Kentucky. We have been showing some of the videos, massive lines there. People wanting to vote, but again, closing the doors, and Charles Booker had to go to court to get an injunction just to allow people to keep voting.
It was like amazing. The thing that I am, on one hand is frustrated because why do people have to go through that? It was hundreds of people still in line, and they closed they closed the doors, locked the doors at 6 o'clock with hundreds of people that were in line and that were upset. And so maybe probably about 5 minutes later, they announced that he had won his injunction, and people were celebrating. Folks were literally like running into the polls. When you've got that kind of enthusiasm in a country that only 45%, that less than 50% of the people actually consistently vote, why would you want to discourage that? And so what happened, was really a beautiful thing. I talked to a lot of people. We've been talking to people all day. The thing that does give me hope is that Black folk are determined, y'all. Like, at the end of the day, Black people in Louisville were not going to let this turn them around. Like, there were all kind of problems that we ran into even early this morning when we went to, when Cliff and I and our team, we arrived at the Birmingham Urban League. Time we walk in, there's a brother named Mr. Mustafa who brought a letter. He came over to vote and had a letter that he received today at 9 this morning in the mail that said he couldn't vote because he had switched parties, and as if he had voted Republican before and now he was voting Democrat. What we heard from him was that there were several other people that don't know where that letter came from. We even got a copy of the letter. We got a copy of the letter. And so ultimately, while on some ways, it was interesting, it was far more organized than what we saw in Georgia. It was in terms of the process to voting, but there were all other kind of dynamics that really led to voter suppression as well. That one, having it at one place, I think was confusing to people. And this at this fairground, you got to have a car. You have to have transportation. There are buses, so you were able to ride a free bus. But it just creates these additional barriers for our people. But what I can tell y'all is that Black voters know they matter, because they were out here. They were literally calling their people. We had a DJ. We had. We're grateful that Ariana Grande actually sponsored some food trucks. Collector Pack was on the scene and helped coordinate. The National Urban League, NAACP Youth, Black Lives Matter. Like, it was such a beautiful coordinated effort by grassroots and Black-led organizations to make sure that our people did not have a traumatic experience, but in fact that we literally took this as a moment to spread a little love and build some power.
And obviously this is important. And look, you got Charles Booker. Polls were showing that he went up almost 8 points against Amy McGrath, and her internal polls were showing that she was up. He knows in order for him to beat her, well-financed, being backed by Democrats in D.C., he needed every single vote possible, and Louisville is a critical place for his turnout.
Louisville is a critical place. 50% of the African-American population for the state of Kentucky live in Louisville. And so he has to have Louisville to win. What I will say is all the voters that we talked to were literally excited about voting today. I mean, they were determined. People were like, I'm going to that poll. I'm going to get in that line. Whatever I got to do, I'm going to vote. People were not discouraged. They were very focused. A lot of people we talked to talked about Breonna Taylor, that they're saying this ain't over, that ultimately there is no justice, that just because he's been fired until that there are some charges filed, that people are not going to stop organizing, stop protesting. And so I do think that there was a lot of energy around that Black Lives Matter and others that are literally been organizing around the senseless murder of Sister Breonna Taylor. That also was a driving force. But the beautiful thing that I saw today is how driven Black folks were, how determined and driven. The challenging thing is, why do we have to keep going through this? That ultimately the burden always rests on us, right? It doesn't matter how inconvenient they make it. It doesn't matter how all of these other little tricks that we see that are voter suppression. We continue to see that. We still in the South, and we still saw that, and there were people who believe that maybe the establishment actually was also that part of it, because part of this whole process was a joint kind of effort between the Democratic governor and a Republican Secretary of State. What's really interesting is there was a bipartisan lawsuit that was filed to have an injunction for there not to be one polling site. They lost that in court. However, I am so glad that Charles Booker continued to fight. Because he continued to fight, there were hundreds of voters who were able to cast their vote, right? But it's almost every step along the way. We have to fight every step along the way. The good news is when we fight, we win.
All right, Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Roland.
Well, thank you. One more breaking news item. The ACLU announced the Missouri Supreme Court ruled that their lawsuit to make sure all eligible voters are able to vote by mail without a notary during COVID-19 can continue. As they say right here, Missouri will see you in court. Brittany, is it an abomination, the fact that Mitch McConnell is sitting on his desk? That is a bill that will restore many of the protections of the Voting Rights Act that the Supreme Court ruled unconstitutional. It's been sitting there for months. He refuses to bring it up. He refuses to bring it to the floor. What does that say about Republicans and what they want to do come November?
I mean, we know what this is, Roland. There is a long history of voter disenfranchisement, especially when it comes to poor communities and communities of color. Even if we look at like the record voting turnout that we had in 2008, right after that, more than 30 states introduced the voter suppression legislation. So, this is a long history. I am in no way surprised whatsoever. We dealt with this when it came to the 15th Amendment, and we saw the rise of the literacy tests, the poll taxes. And then, of course, again, things that have happened after Barack Obama was elected, and of course, like you said, with the bill that's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. This is the name of the game. It's the changing same, if you will. They have no intention on allowing us to vote fairly or equally because they know that's going to change the outcome and that they are not going to continue to be elected. So I am in no way surprised.
Melik, you look at why, again, here you got Mitch McConnell from Kentucky sitting on his desk for months, won't even bring it up. And if that was in place, you would have some protections against some of the actions that we're seeing take place all across the South.
Yeah, I'm not sure why McConnell isn't touching it right now. But I want to reiterate that this is something that, fortunately, all of the other states, with the exception of for Georgia, Kentucky, and even D.C., all of those states that had earlier primaries before we really went into this quarantine lockdown, they had the benefit of not having to deal with all of this, which I imagine, and I don't think that the mayor of D.C. was part of some conspiracy to deny the vote. I actually, as we were talking, I got people texting me saying, well, why isn't Roland talking about what happened here in D.C., where our 100 or so usual precinct were down to 20. I don't think that the mayor intentionally tried to suppress the vote here, but that's exactly what happened.
But I'll tell you why. But here's the deal, though. Look, first of all, I have parents, both 73 years old, who have worked the polls for years. We do have a fundamental problem right now where, first of all, most of the people who work polls are older Americans, and there are people who are scared to death of contracting coronavirus. As Reverend Dr. Barber said, what should be happening is you should have mayors and governors and secretaries of states and election officials, county supervisors saying, hey, let's look at this, knowing full well we're going to have fewer people, and then let's actually extend this, as Reverend Barber said, have longer periods of early voting, be able to expand mail-in voting. But part of the problem, even with mail-in voting, you got Republicans who are fighting even putting a prepaid stamp on the doggone thing, and you got Donald Trump tweeting every other day saying, oh, it's fraud, it's rigged, don't do it. And the Republican Party, as a party, they are fighting expanding mail-in balloting, even though people are saying keep folks safe from contracting coronavirus.
Well, what I can do is talk about my own city and what I know people experienced here. I know there tends to be a lot of focus on what happens.
No. What we can do is actually talk about what's happening in the nation and what should be done.
Well,
that was my question. And so what I'm asking is,
what I'm actually trying to explain to you as far as what happened here in D.C.
What I'm asking you is, are you and other black conservatives, are y'all challenging Roland McDaniel and Donald Trump by saying, why are you opposing efforts to expand mail-in voting when that's keeping people safe?
Well, as far as my purposes, I can talk about what happened here in D.C. I don't have those conversations.
I'm asking. So I'm asking you.
I don't have those conversations.
So you can't say hold up. You can't send an email. You can't say, as a black Republican or conservative, that you're concerned about the Republican Party using resources to oppose expanding mail-in balloting so people can stay safe. Can you speak on that?
That's something that I should do, but that would really only satisfy you. It wouldn't do anything personally for me.
No, I'm sorry.
But what I know
so that doesn't matter to you?
Well, sure, those things matter, but it also matters what happened here in the city where I live.
So hold on, I'm trying to understand. It doesn't. So
well, you're not allowing me to say anything,
so why can't you?
So
why would you be opposed to even saying? Or how about you calling other black conservatives and say, why don't we speak as a group and say to the RNC, stop fighting expanding mail-in balloting because we should be giving people access to the ballot to keep them healthy?
Well, I'm pretty sure that there are people who can actually do that. That's not something that I'm going to do. So to answer your question, no, that's not something that I'm going to do. But I can tell you again what happened here in D.C. We had the early voting. We had the extended hours. We had the mail-in voting. There were people in D.C. because they never received absentee ballots. They said, okay, well, let me just go to the poll because I never received those absentee ballots. In a city where voted for Joe Biden, I think probably almost 80%. He was going to win D.C. anyway. I don't think that the mayor intended to suppress the vote here, but what I do know that there were people, as I'm now seeing, they were waiting in lines after midnight to vote here in D.C., not in Kentucky, not in Georgia, here in D.C., and we don't talk about that because I don't know if it's because it's a blue city and we don't want to criticize the mayor here, but the activists that you're talking about, there were activists on the ground complaining about the fact that we couldn't get in to vote.
Actually, we've talked about it where there were blue cities. We talked about it actually, for instance, in Houston, where you have a Democratic mayor. And we've actually talked about it when we was on the campus of Texas Southern University. And we also talked about it where the county elections chair in Harris County is a Democrat. Amisha, doesn't it bother you? Amisha, doesn't it bother you, Amisha? Actually, I'm talking about the country. You only want to limit the conversation in D.C. Amisha, here's the deal. No, actually, you're wrong. Amisha, here's the deal here. I'm talking to Amisha right now. Amisha, here's the real deal here. Amisha, here's what doesn't make sense. I'm talking to Amisha right now. Amisha, this is the fundamental deal. I would think that if you're a Democrat or Republican and you care about the health of people, you wouldn't say, well, you know what, I'm not going to do anything about it. You would actually say, guess what, RNC or DNC, stop the shenanigans, keep folks safe, expand voting opportunities. Amisha, final comment before I go to my next guest out of Tulsa.
You're absolutely correct, Roland. This should not be a partisan debate, and we're seeing it turn into that. We should be expanding voter access for anyone along all political stripes who is eligible to vote in this country. It does not make sense that amid a international pandemic that we are seeing more and more voter disenfranchisement happen. We know that there are some things that we're going to have to change. I know that, and I'm very excited that you mentioned the average age of poll workers. I have myself volunteered at the polls several times, and I'm always aligned with seniors. It makes sense that there are a lot of people within that age range who are now being extremely cautious because of COVID-19, because they're the people who are the most affected and who get sick at the highest rates. So what we need to do is make sure that, and I think Reverend Barber mentioned this, make sure that we're expanding the time frame that people can vote. That 2 weeks makes a difference, but also making sure that we have other people who are, signing up to be poll workers. Because part of the other issue is we have an understaffed poll working system that I don't think that we had a full understanding of how we would necessarily be able to accommodate. But in addition to that, we have to continue to fight the force of Donald Trump and the Republican Party that says that there's a problem with mail-in voting. And be mindful that Donald Trump himself mail-in votes, and over 60% of his administration also mail-in votes. So if there's this huge hoax and if there's this huge fear of there being some type of voter fraud, which is what Republicans say anytime we talk about having everyone vote, particularly black and brown people, then why on earth is he himself and his campaign, as well as his strategists, engaging in it themselves? If it is good enough for them, if they can mail in vote, and if people can mail in vote in the thousands for decades now, why is it now that amid COVID-19, where it would be more protective for people to utilize that resource, that we are now seeing this administration and Republicans push so hard against mail-in ballots?
I want to talk about his next story, and that is what's happening in Tulsa. Of course, Donald Trump was there on Saturday with that joke of a panel, joke of a rally. One of the issues that still has not been properly addressed, and that is, of course, the Tulsa race riot, 1921. Oklahoma had a commission. They had somewhat of an apology, but they still will not pay for what actually took place. DeMario Simmons, he's actually an attorney there. He's representing the last survivor of that. He joins us right now. It's crazy that, first of all, what happened there was negligence by police, negligence by city officials. If that happened anywhere in the world, America would be demanding that country pay penalties to Americans who were impacted by it. Oklahoma, to this point, has said, not our problem. Y'all can here's a resolution, here's a quasi apology, but we're paying nothing.
Absolutely, Roland. Obviously, good to see you as always. I just want to say first that I do represent Mother Leslie Benefield Randall. She's 105 years old, and she's the last known living survivor that still lives in Tulsa. We do know of 2 other survivors that live outside of Tulsa. And you mentioned that the city and the state did this negligently. They did this intentionally. They intentionally destroyed the Black Wall Street of America because of their jealousy, because they had envy that the Black people here in Oklahoma had built a society, a community, basically their own town that was very prosperous and had money, had wealth, had doctors and lawyers, had oil, had land ownership, had a freedom mind state, and most of all, they had a community. And so this was burnt down to the ground in 1921. Overnight, you had 10,000 people homeless. You had up to 1,000 people dead and or missing. You had $50 to $100 million just in property damage. Now, we're not talking about the lost wages. We're not talking about the deaths, just in property damages. And so that's why I'm working with a team of lawyers from around the nation and other advocates, academics, volunteers. We have started an organization called Justice for Greenwood Foundation. Our website is greenwoodreparations.com. That's greenwoodreparations.com. We are totally focused on getting reparations for Mother Randall and the Greenwood community during this 100-year anniversary.
When you speak of that again, the state, they've had the pomp and circumstance, they've had all those different things, but you have red state legislature there who they do not want to atone for what happened there. It's simple as that. They refuse to do so.
Right, and what we talk about on our website at greenwoodreparations.com is making sure we're taking control of the true narrative. What's happening now, you have the same entities like the city of Tulsa who destroyed and killed Black Wall Street and Black people. They're now trying to utilize and leverage the story of the massacre and Black Wall Street for their own gain. So at the same time, our mayor, G.T. Bynum, refuses to even discuss reparations. He says it's too divisive. This is the same mayor who rolled out the red carpet for the Trump rally to come in. But he says if you talk about the reparations, it's too divisive, but the city is trying to benefit and utilize the history of Greenwood to cover up their gentrification of the area, what we call glorified gentrification. Because what we know since 1921, there's been a continual massacre of the Black people here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we think it's so important that we connect with people from all across this nation. One aspect of our campaign at greenwoodreparations.com is to find other survivors and descendants in what we call the Greenwood diaspora. Greenwood folks were dispersed throughout this country, throughout this world, and we want to find them and we want to learn their story and how the massacre of 1921 impeded and interfered with their lives over the last 99 years.
All right, then, DeMario, we surely, man, appreciate it. Thanks so very much.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate you always supporting us, and please send your viewers to greenwoodreparations.com.
All right, we'll do. Thanks so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk Mississippi flag. It's a football player there saying, I'm not playing as long as that flag is flying. Walmart also makes a decision about that state flag as well. Plus, we'll talk about a Hollywood editor who made a call for more Black editors, and white folks lost their mind. He'll join us right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Have those headphones we showed you, plus that virtual reality headset. This is a 360-degree 4D headphones. Amazing sound, folks. If you want to actually get these, all you got to do is simply go to seek.com, CEEK.com, and then you can use the promo code right there. It says RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. A sister, she actually created that, Mary Spiel. She is the creator of this, and so just go to seek.com, use the promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. All right, folks, today in Congress, they debated the GOP bill on police reform being offered up by Senator Tim Scott. Senator Kamala Harris, she spoke about calling it inadequate and how it does not meet the immediate needs of the moment. Here's what she had to say.
I will say, we cannot answer their demands with this Republican attempt to obstruct real progress and real justice in our country. And for all of the pundits out there that want to entertain a conversation about whether Democrats actually want police reform, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We are responding to the cries in the street. We are taking them seriously. And we have proposed a prescription that actually responds to not just their demands, but the specific cases and the bodies that have just most recently been buried, much less the generations of black bodies that have been buried because of this issue. So don't anyone dare suggest we are standing in the way of progress. Let us all be clear about what is happening in the politics of this moment. The Republican bill has been thrown out to give lip service to an issue with nothing substantial in it that would actually save or would have saved any of those lives. So let's not be distracted from the task at hand. I intend to vote against a motion to proceed tomorrow. I also intend to vote for a motion to proceed with real reform. I'm not against a motion to proceed. We should proceed. As a former prosecutor, I will also say, we often in the criminal justice system talk about and use this phrase, accountability and consequence. We use it all the time. Accountability and consequence. There must be accountability and consequence. And almost every time that phrase is invoked, it is directed at the person who was arrested. And hardly ever is that phrase directed at the very system itself and the actors in that system. Where is the accountability and consequence when a system fails the people it is designed to protect?
Well, that was one particular moment where Senator John Cornyn got his ass handed to him by Senator Kamala Harris. Watch this.
Well, Senator Cornyn, you and I both serve, and we are honored to serve on the Senate Judiciary Committee, as does Senator Booker, Senator Durbin. We all serve on the Judiciary Committee. The two Senate authors of this bill serve with you on the Senate Judiciary Committee. As you know, because we've been present together during our most recent hearings, we have asked that there would be a meaningful discussion of the Justice and Policing Act in that committee. None has occurred. So if we're going to talk about process, let us look at all the tools that are available to well-intentioned, well-meaning legislators if the goal is actually to solve and address the issue at hand? I've seen no evidence of that. I've seen no evidence of, in fact, what I've seen reading some of the newspapers, sometimes they get things wrong, but if they got it right, the Senate leader said that he has no interest in engaging in that kind of discussion or debate before putting the bill on the floor for a vote tomorrow.
Madam President, may I ask one last question of the Senator? What I'm trying to fathom, Madam President, is why the Senator would rather have these negotiations occur behind closed doors as opposed to here on the floor of the Senate for the American people to see broadcast on television. Don't you think that sort of interaction and debate and negotiation out in front of all 330 million Americans would be beneficial to healing our country and coming to some consensus about what the appropriate reforms should be?
Indeed, that is the beauty of the Judiciary Committee. Our meetings are public meetings.
Ooh. Amisha, talking about a smackdown. That is the point of the committee. The point of the committee is actually for you to go back and forth, and before you advance it to the floor, you have the debate. I'm trying to understand why that's so hard.
No, Roland, you definitely hit the nail on the head there, and I think that she did as well, because at the end of the day, the Republicans don't understand who they are trying to target and who they're playing with when they're coming after someone like Kamala Harris. She knows the rules inside and out. She is poised, she is ready, and Cornyn was trying to play some dirty tricks to win political points for Republicans, and she would not let him have it. These are not meetings that are held in the darkness of night. These are not meetings that are not public. So she has been very, very open about everything that's going on. And to her credit, I think that she definitely has a full understanding of why it's important that the public have the acknowledgement of the work she's doing, but also what the Republicans are trying to do in terms of restraining and trying to piecemeal and not pass actual real legislation that reforms police brutality and excessive use of force in this country.
Looks like first of all, we're having some issues. I know we're having some issues with our stream on YouTube, and so we just want to let folks know that. What I don't seem to understand, Malik, is, first of all, if you're Republicans in the Senate, then if you're Democrats in the House, aren't you supposed to actually negotiate it in your chambers, and then, as opposed to say, well, fine, we'll just pass it, and then we'll just go to conference? I mean, can't you actually do that?
Sure you can. But unfortunately, I didn't get a sense of what it is that the Senator Harris is objecting to about the Republican bill. I'm sitting here looking at a list of things, trying to figure out what is it that the senator would have a problem with. Does she have a problem with the government withholding funding for units without the ban on chokeholds? Does she have a problem with the body cameras that are mentioned there, the database for police records, making federal lynching a crime, making lynching a federal crime?
Well, actually, hold on. First of all, you're bringing up. Hold on, but you're bringing up lynching. She's okay, Malik. You bringing up lynching. She's a co-sponsor of the bill, so she's not objecting to that. She's a co-sponsor. No. You can't say, well, I don't know if she's objecting to that. She's the co-sponsor of the bill. Obviously, she supports that piece of the legislation on lynching.
Well, outside of the performance that you just showed us, I don't know what she's objecting to about the bill.
Actually,
because there are many things in the bill, as they talk about many bipartisan efforts in the bill.
So you didn't do any research?
There's no funding associated with the tracking.
Amisha, go ahead.
Yeah, she's also objecting to the tracking, because that tracking piece that's supposed to be there to help to provide accountability for police officers, the federal government is not funding at all. So within that, they used it as a sticker point just to check off a box, but there is no additional funding that is coming out of the Fed to actually support or acknowledge this. And we know that even with the chokehold piece that is there, it only applies if the chokehold is something that the officer believes was necessary. In every case of a chokehold, the officer has said that it was necessary. So she is actually dwelling down and taking apart the pieces that she knows do not work.
Brittany,
Well, she didn't
one
say
second.
that, though. That's what I'm saying.
1 second.
In that performance that she gave
Okay,
us,
first of
she
all,
didn't mention any of that.
okay, Malik. First of all, in her floor speech, it doesn't cover all those issues. That's why you do the research. She's actually spoken about this actually on her Twitter. Excuse me. I'm not done. I am not done. No, maybe you produce your own show. If you go to her Twitter feed, you can actually do your own research. Brittany, let me go to you, Brittany. Let me go to you. Brittany, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm going to ask you the same. I'm going to ask you the same question, Brittany. I'm going to ask you the same question, Brittany, and that is this here. The reason you have committees is to have the back and forth to offer amendments to actually bolster the bill before it actually goes to the floor.
Absolutely. And we know that's why Kamala is fighting the way that she is for these issues. She knows, and Amisha made some excellent points earlier, just talking about the various, points of the bill that are problematic that we know aren't going to actually lead to any real systemic change within the African-American community and their relationship with policing. And I think, the idea that even have these conversations behind closed doors is absolutely ridiculous because we're talking about people's lives at the end of the day.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Speaking of lives, Walmart has announced that they will no longer allow the Mississippi flag, the current flag, to be flown in their stores. A decision came down today. Also, University of Mississippi football players announced that he will not play football for Ole Miss as long as that flag with the Confederate emblem is flying on their state flag. Now, the governor of the state, you also have some people we're talking about the possibility of having two flags. He rejected that, saying that makes no sense. He tweeted over the weekend, there's been a proposal floating among some in the legislature to create a second Mississippi flag. He said, let's call it the separate but equal flag option. While well-intentioned, I'm sure it does not meet the threshold. Any similar plan would accomplish the exact opposite of our stated goal. It would actually divide our state more. You have more. The SEC also announced they will not allow any championships to actually take place in Mississippi as long as that particular flag is flying. Malik, you're from there. It's time for the Confederate flag to go.
As I've said on your show many times, the whole issue of the Confederate flag is not something that particularly bothers me. If the state decides to take the flag down, I will have absolutely no problem with it. But the notion of the Confederate flag flying in Mississippi is not something that truly concerns me. As I've said on your show many times before, I would like that type of interest paid to the people who actually not fought in the Civil War trying to maintain the system of slavery. I would like that attention paid to people who actually participated in that system. So, for instance, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and many others. Even in the city of Washington, D.C., our flag is based on the flag of George Washington's actual grandfather, someone who owned slaves. So for me, it's kind of like, okay. And if the gentleman decides that he no longer wants to play football in a state that he grew up in, knowing the flag's history, accepting that scholarship to Mississippi, to Ole Miss, or Mississippi State, if that's something that he wants to do, fine, transfer it to another school if he can. But I'm not impressed by the fact that he says that he no longer wants to play for a school in a state that exists under a flag that he grew up in. That's just not something that impresses me. But if they decide to change the flag, more power to them. It's just not something that drives me, and it never has.
Of course, if you don't even give a damn about the flag even flying, you would have that opinion. Amisha, the reality is here. Actually, I can't talk about that. But see, first thing I'm gonna do, excuse me, I'm talking. So here's the piece right here. Sure, you can mute Melly now because he won't shut the hell up. Amisha, here's the real deal here, Amisha, what you're dealing with here. What you're dealing with here is when you have football players, we're seeing this in other aspects. When you have football players who are saying, this is not how we're not going to roll, that also begins to change things. Trust me, I think with the economic pressure, and if you start having black ball players at Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Southern Miss, get more courage like this brother right here, Colin Hill, go to my iPad. He says, either change the flag or I won't be representing this state anymore, 100%, and I meant that. I'm tired. Go, show it, please. This is his tweet that he actually sent in response to the governor statement there. That is important, and I'm glad to see that brother stand up and have that courage, Amisha.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Roland. And I think that this is a watershed moment for the state of Mississippi. Though born in Chicago, I was raised in Mississippi, went to elementary school, middle school, and high school in Mississippi, and was there when they would have us pledge the United States flag and the Mississippi flag right next to it. That flag flies over every public institution in the state, whether it's health, education, it flies in front of churches. It has been a scorn on the state for decades at this point, and I think that it's been high time that it be taken down. And I personally find those courageous young people who are student athletes to be folks who are, stepping forward in what I would consider the modern civil rights movement to take a stand. Because the state of Mississippi, what they will not do, and there are a few things that are going right in Mississippi. Well, one of the things that is their football. And there's so much riding on the funding of those sports teams. So much riding on the fact that African-American talent is what sustains SEC football across the South, but specifically in a state like Mississippi. This makes a difference. I'll also bring to your attention that as of today, the Southern Baptist Convention and the Mississippi Baptist Convention have spoken out against this flag as well. Those are two of the most interesting bedfellows when it comes to racism. And now they too are saying this is wrong. This is morally wrong. A watershed moment is occurring across Mississippi and across this country. That flag will come down, whether the people who claim heritage or, arguing for it to remain are happy with it or not. It is high time that flag is done, and I think that we're going to see that happen in short order.
And very simple, Brittany, very simple, Brittany, when you have folks defending that nonsense, defending the Confederacy, defending their state holiday, honoring some of the greatest traitors in American history, black folks should care, and I'm glad to see there are people like Anjanou Ellis and other black people who are from Mississippi, who still live in Mississippi, who say that black kids in Mississippi should not have to be, not have to grow up, but they are saluting that particular flag. That to me is important, and so glad to see those black folks have some guts.
Roland, it just doesn't make sense to me, to be quite frank. I mean, first off, if you are a true quote unquote patriot, why are you celebrating those that wanted to break from the Union? Period, point blank. My second point is, why are we celebrating those that wanted to own and keep human beings as slaves? Why is that something we ever want to memorialize in any capacity? Thirdly, even when we think about other areas that have dealt with human atrocities, so we can look at Germany. Germany doesn't have Nazi monuments to remind citizens of their history. Instead, they have memorials for the 6 million Jews and others who were murdered. So I really just don't understand why this is even still a conversation in 2020. That flag and all of the statues associated with it need to be removed. And I am so proud of the black athletes who are taking their stance and saying, we are not standing for this. We are not going to play, especially knowing that these spaces are making so much money off of them. It's the ability, I think of the book that was written, $40 million Slaves, right? And talking about athletes, it's just, physically about their bodies and not talking about their humanity and their ability to stand up to racial injustice, including that flag. So power to them, power to the people, power to the athletes for them standing up to blatant legacy of racism that encompasses that flag.
And I would guess is here, if you're in Mississippi and you're tired of being broke, you probably would want to say, why are we losing opportunities to make money because we're defending a flag? That's real simple. It's real simple. So, Melik, I don't understand why white folks there, they just love their flag so much, they would rather be broke than actually stop celebrating the Confederates.
Yeah, I doubt that has it. I doubt that people being in poverty or broke or whatever has anything to do with the Confederate flag. I don't think that affects the economics.
That's stupid. If you're celebrating, no, it's stupid. If you're celebrating the Confederacy, it's stupid. It's idiotic and you're stupid.
Oh, are you finished?
Hell yeah.
And if you're arguing that it's
Amisha, go right ahead.
At this point, if you're arguing that it's heritage, you're also ridiculous, because what they're taking away from it is not its actual legacy. This flag for African Americans specifically has meant torture. It's meant burnings. It's meant bombing of churches. It's meant dismantling civil rights when it comes to voting, when it comes to equal opportunity and access to education. It has meant death, literal death. This is a terrorist symbol in America. So for anyone who somehow does not understand that, I question their ability to understand this project we call America. I question their ability to actually look back and see that what they consider heritage is something that is extremely disturbing, something that has literally caused so many dead bodies and so much disenfranchisement of an entire population. And when we see it, when African Americans see it, there is that re-upping of those symbols. There's that re-upping of that emotion. There's that re-upping of the fact that this flag was flown by the KKK. This is a re-upping of the fact that this goes beyond the Confederate history of the Civil War. This flag meant something up and through the Civil Rights Movement. It meant something up and through the 90s and the early 2000s. There are houses that have been burned by black people's houses that have been burned since the start of the millennium, just because black people were moving to areas so that their kids would have better educational opportunities. Instead, white people decided that that area was not a place that they were going to be welcomed, and they still staked that flag. So if they don't understand what that heritage means, now is the time that they need to get deeper. Just like white America discovered Juneteenth last week, they're going to discover why we hate the Confederate flag
Trust
today.
me. Trust me. They know why they're flying their flag. Melik, final comment. Go.
As I said many times before, I feel about the Confederate flag in Mississippi. If they choose to take it down, absolutely great job, do that. But I feel about the Confederate flag, the Confederate symbols, the same way I feel about Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and the many others that we celebrate who actually not just fought for the Confederacy, but owned, raped, and impregnated slaves.
Folks, talk about one of the Confederate symbols. The Edmund Pettus Bridge is one of those. On Monday, Michael Starr Hopkins announced the launch of what is called the John Lewis Bridge Project, with the primary mission to rename the Edmund Pettus Bridge in honor of Congressman John Lewis by calling it the John Lewis Bridge. The John Lewis Bridge Project will also support efforts to remove and replace other existing signs of the Confederacy and white supremacy. He joins us right now. Michael, glad to have you on the show. First and foremost, what's your plan for this project? What does it look like? Is it an online petition? Exactly what is it?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Roland. So what we plan to do is take the 250,000 signatures that we already have and use those to fundraise and put people on the ground to increase the level of signatures on the petition. We plan on putting billboards not only in Selma, but all around the country, raising awareness to the fact that Edmund Pettus wasn't just a KKK Grand Wizard, but was also a member of the Confederate Army. He was a general in the Confederate Army. And so the idea that we would continue to honor him with his name on the bridge, I think, is antithetical to everything the country is supposed to stand for.
Now, of course, Alabama has already changed their law, so nothing can be changed unless the legislature approves it.
Yeah, so there's a couple issues there. We're absolutely going to have to wrestle with the legislature and get them to pass legislation. But I'm going to refer to it as the Selma Bridge because I refuse to refer to it as the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The Selma Bridge is a national historic landmark. And so there is an argument that the Secretary of Interior should be able to change the name of that bridge, being that it falls on arguably federal territory as a part of the Park Service.
So you're saying that because that the Park Service has authority over that bridge, not the state of Alabama?
So that's something that's never been tested in court before, and hopefully it won't have to get to that, because hopefully the governor, along with the state legislature and this administration, will have the political courage to change it themselves. But certainly we're open to all options, including testing whether or not this is federal territory and can thereby fall under the federal government's jurisdiction to change that name. But one way or another, let's not confuse this at all. That name needs to come down off of that bridge.
What do you say to those people who say that by leaving that name up, it links present day with what actually happened on that particular bridge, and what happened on Bloody Sunday should always be remembered?
We should absolutely always remember that. Listen, I walk in the footsteps of giants who come before me, but in remembering that, we also don't need to honor traitorous individuals who believe that people like myself and people like you should still be in shackles. So we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And what we need to do here is take not just the name off the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but we need to take these Confederate honorees and put them in museums where they belong. You know, if you travel the world and go to Germany, you won't see statues to Hitler to remind the Jews of the horrible things he did. If you go to Italy, you don't see statues of Mussolini. So there's no reason that here in America we should have statues that honor horrible, horrible people. And as an African-American man, I think you and I will both agree, I don't need a statute there to remind me of our country's horrible, horrible past.
So what's next?
What's next? We're going to continue to fundraise. We're going to continue to get more signatures. You know, this isn't something I expected to happen. I was sitting on my couch a little over 10 days ago watching Selma and realized that I had no idea who Edmund Pettus was, and so started a petition, something that anyone all over the country can do, kind of the foundation of where this country is, civic action. And so this has grown exponentially, bigger than I ever expected, and we're going to take this movement and turn it into a movement to not only educate people, but wipe away some of the stains of bigotry that people like Donald Trump and people in his party have continued to defend.
All right, then. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for being on the show. Michael Hopkins, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Brittany Lewis, yes or no, should that bridge be renamed to the John Lewis Bridge from Edmund Pettus?
Yes, absolutely. No questions asked. It all needs to come down. It all needs to be renamed.
Mello, yes or no? Rename the bridge?
If they choose to rename it, I'm fine with that. If they name it out of John Lewis or anybody else, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Amisha?
I've called it the John Lewis Bridge since I was 6, so it wouldn't be that big of a change for me. But honestly, we know of the history of the current name that it has, and I would honestly be proud of our country if it was changed.
All right, then, folks, got to go to a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a brother who wanted to hire more black editors, but then white folks decided to weigh in, getting attitudes like they don't have all the jobs in Hollywood right now. Plus, y'all, where do y'all see this new Karen just lose her damn mind? I don't want to go viral. You went viral. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, real simple. Hollywood is not diverse at all. I mean, not at all. When filmmaker Ricardo Handy posted a request on Facebook for fellow black union editors to get in touch with him, he thought he was helping diversify productions and expanding opportunities for people of color. This is what it said. Looking for black union editors. Please DM me for your contact info. Well, again, he thought it was expanding those opportunities, but the number of racist responses to the post from within the post-production community has now drawn attention throughout the entertainment industry. You see that? Look what we were asked to tolerate, what a racist. I only respond to a person who only wants an editor of a specific color. Well, Ricardo Handy joins us now. And Ricardo, since you posted that, all these people, again, sitting here losing their mind, all upset, do any of these white folks even remotely understand how white productions are in Hollywood?
I think that a lot of people do. A lot of all of us do. White, black, they understand it, but there's definitely a big segment of folks that understand it and don't want to change. They don't want to change at all.
I mean, they want to have all the jobs. I mean, I'm talking about. What people don't understand is that, and I've been on many movie sets, okay? You go on these sets, and you're sitting here going, typically, director's white, assistant director's white, cinematographer's white, grip, catering, limousine. I mean, you can start going down, and people think Oscar So White is on the big screen. No. Go behind the scenes, and you really see how Hollywood is so white.
Yeah. I mean, what this revealed to me even, I know my personal experience, but what was revealed to me was that, so many people reached out and they had similar experiences of being the only black, the only person of color on either in their post-production department or on their production.
I remember talking to Ruben Santiago Hudson. We were talking about this here, and we were talking about he was working on a project, and he hired some black people in critical positions, and there were other people who were really upset. And he said, I'm sorry, but how many of your friends did you bring on to your last project? How many of your people did you bring on to Critical Opportunities and you did not offer them up? See, it's amazing how they always say, oh, no, it should be based upon color, as if their white privilege has not gotten them editing jobs.
Right. Well, and I think that what it boils down to, and I shared this in the op-ed I wrote, like, you know, we in this industry hire from our social circles. And that's why you had double WGA and other, you know, unions actually create pathways for more diversity in their areas, right?
Right,
and
right. Meaning you wouldn't have to create something special if we were getting hired.
Right, right. No, true. But I think that the interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize is, you know, 90%, you know, a lot of these jobs in Hollywood are the below the line jobs, right? They are the grips, the electrics, the editors, the people in post-production. And so this just shines a huge spotlight on that disparity of, you know, there are a lot of barriers to people getting those first opportunities, you know, and so there has to be something created, you know, to actually allow that to happen.
Well, and what gets me is that, first of all, with these responses, what then happened when they started posting these comments and other folks started calling them out, or did they call them out?
No, in the chat, I mean, there's thousands, well, not thousands, like 1,500 comments probably now, and most of them were people sending editors, you know, and also combating the negative comments. I think that, you know, in that particular group, it was just a small number of folks, but it really exposed, you know, the actual feelings. Because, you know, there's a lot of people in there that may have felt that way that didn't say anything too. And I think that that's really what this shined a light on. And I think that now there's an opportunity for us to really generate some solutions, you know, really actually put our heads together. And there's a lot of groups working on this problem, but now that the spotlight's on it, you know, we can actually make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the only way this changes, and like, I mean, I love it when white folks start yelling, oh my God, it's affirmative action, and you go, what do you think you got? And so part of this deal is, in their minds, oh no, I got these opportunities because I'm good. As if their whiteness never played a role in it, when, to your point, people are hired based upon who I know. Well, if you white and you only know white folks, you're going to keep hiring white folks, and you're not going to create the opportunity for somebody else or even look at their talent because you keep hiring your same white folks.
And I think that what I really think the problem is that, you know, when we're not getting those entryways in, you know, different diverse groups are not getting those entryways in, they're not moving up to those leadership roles that can help make those decisions. And so you have a lot of people at the top. There's, you know, we all talk about the glass ceiling, you know, that exists in this industry too. And essentially, you know, the people that are doing the hiring, you know, it has to come from top down. It has to be mandated that, you know, these sets and these shows and these companies have to start to reflect what the nation looks like. And that's why I talked about, you know, that's why we take the U.S. Census. You know, it's all about equity.
Well, I think one of the problems that we make is we as African Americans, and obviously because, look, you have lack of opportunities everywhere. But part of the problem is that we sometimes get so caught up in, yes, who's the actor or the actress, who's the person, or even the case, who's the director. But when you start saying, no, the business of Hollywood, the writer rooms, and you start talking about, yes, the editors, and then all of those positions, and people don't realize you might be an actor and you might work on one movie a year. You might be an editor and you might work on 4 or 5 movies a year. So the number of jobs are so plentiful, the opportunities for you. And this is sort of like, and this is what I tell people all the time, it's sort of like the trade unions. Okay, just because it's a union don't mean they really got our back as well. Black folks were shut out of trade unions. Well, guess what? Hollywood, those are trade unions.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that I talked about as well. And when I first started getting all the questions, you know what I mean? I immediately started hearing from the diversity departments of my local 700 union just about the things that they want to see change. And that's one of the things they want demographic information to be taken because they don't even really have a good idea of where their membership lies. And I think the editor's topic, I think, is really touchy about this is because, editors are controlling the narrative. We are helping shape and cultivate the stories that are being told, the final story that you see, especially in the reality space. A lot of that is a bunch of footage that an editor takes and crafts a story. And so, a lot of these shows show Black culture, but our voices aren't necessarily always a part of making those decisions about what the story is. And so I think it is an important conversation that we are having right now that, because Black is not only a color or not only a race, it's also a culture. You know what I mean? And there's things that you and I know as Black people that we've experienced in our culture and our lives that, other cultures may not have experienced. And it's the same thing, with other cultures, with Italian or Jewish or, any other cultures, all these cultural nuances that we have to tell in our stories. And so it's important that we have the people that are familiar with those cultures helping to tell them, helping to craft them.
All right, then. Well, look, we surely appreciate you shining a light on this, and hopefully some people will pay attention and we'll see the changes that take place.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks a lot, Doc. Take care.
All right, peace.
All right, folks. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about y'all. What do y'all see these new Karen, these crazy ass white people? Before we do that, I want to make sure that folks that you understand what we're trying to do here, what we're building here in Roland Martin Unfiltered, and join our Bring the Funk fan club. We got more than 8,200 people who are part of our fan club. The goal is to get 20,000 by the end of the year. The goal is to donate $50 or more. If you donate less, that's fine. But our goal is to be independent and then relying on you and not being corporate owned, which gives us the freedom to cover what we want to cover. These are the people who've given $50 or more. They get a personal shout out. Ahmad Whitaker, Alicia Russell, Alf of Hip Hop Slam, Allison Henry, Andre Jones, Black Mama Brands, Bridget Bovell, Calandria Williams, C.T. Skinner, Deshaun Kaiser, Don J, Deacon Blues, Delmer Fletcher, Denise James, Donald Norris, Eddie Bags, Elma Bristol, Elmer Foster, Freddie Holyfield, Freddie Sidbury, Gregory Horsley, Gwendolyn Matthews, Houston, Eon Talley, Jadonna Sanders, John Dorsey Jr., Karen Russ, Katrina Pickett, Khadija Hakeem, Kimberly Landry, Latasha Rice, Lloyd Kirkendall, Louis Mungo, Luella Bolton, Lyra's Temporary Office Services, Maletta Apago, Marcus Ruffin, Marjorie Skinner Riley, Markeisha, Michelle Barnett, Mr. Mac Mouchette, Michelle Peck Glaspie, Patricia, Priscilla Smith, Reverend Philip L. Suber, Richard Whiteside, Robert Orange, Rodney Rivers, Ronnie Ford, Rosalind Wills, Ruby Hayes, Russell Sanders, Sadia Holland, Samuel Collins, Samuel Walton, Shauna Parker, Shannon, Sofrina Hinton, Sonia Brown, Stephanie Hathaway, Stephen Stokes, Stephanie Teagues Boutique, Tabase Burns, Takesha Bonnier, Tamara Jones, Taylor, Terry, Thomas Green, Tanya Whitley, Tony Gardner, Tracy Wyatt, Valerie Matthews, Vanessa Walker, Velda Renee Burns, Vanita Durgin, Veronica Moser, Vincent Jackson, Wanda Green, Warren Brown, and Wayne Armstead Jr. If you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, go to Cash App, please. $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/R Unfiltered. Plus, you can also send a money order to New Vision Media, Inc. Make it payable to that, please. 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. Again, make it payable to New Vision Media. Your support is important, and so we certainly thank all of you who donated. Some 5,000 of you are literally watching us right now on YouTube. You can give right there on YouTube to support what we do, and we appreciate all of you for what you do. All right, y'all. Y'all know what time it is.
No charcoal grills are allowed. I'm white. I got you, Carl. Illegally selling water without a permit on my property. Whoa! Hey!
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
All right, y'all. I'm going to start first off with this guy. Y'all, he has a different dress code for black children and white children. Y'all watch this video.
The gentleman's already explained it to you.
Okay, tell it to me again. You telling me we cannot eat here?
So unfortunately, we do have a dress code. If you have some non-athletic shorts.
But that white kid out there can eat here with his tennis shoes on and his athletic shirt.
So we allow tennis shoes, but not athletic shorts and t-shirts.
He has one. You telling me that's not an athletic shirt? Not that one, but you telling me that little boy who just ate here does not have on an athletic shirt?
I'm sorry. I would love for you to be able to come back and eat here.
So you telling me my son can't eat here because he has no athletic stuff?
No, just the shorts. It is part of our dress code. We try to.
So it's only his shorts? Only the shorts can't be athletic?
The shorts and the t-shirt, yes.
But the little boy has on an athletic, the little white kid that just sat out there had on an athletic tennis shoes and an athletic shirt.
I understand that you're upset. If there's
No, it's not that I'm upset. The little boy out there had on athletic, you telling me it's no athletic wear. The little boy out there had on athletic tennis shoes and an athletic shirt. So why does he get to wear athletic wear and my son can't?
I would love for you to be able to come back. Do you live close enough for your son to change?
No, I don't. I just want to know why it's different for my son.
I understand how you feel.
I don't want you to sympathize with me. I just want you to tell me why it's different for my son. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just asking you why it's different for my son.
I understand.
And that little kid that was out there with athletic tennis shoes and...
The t-shirt that the little kid was wearing, we don't consider that to be athletic t-shirt.
Why?
Honestly, I did not get a good look, but it looked like a regular t-shirt.
I have a video. Do you want to see it?
If you would like to show it to me, I'm happy to look, but I do have to...
Brittany, this was a restaurant in Baltimore owned by the Atlas Restaurant Group. They released this statement. Today, we learned of an incredibly disturbing incident that occurred over the weekend at one of our restaurants in Baltimore, Ouzo Bay. The video made public earlier today was by a very concerned mother after she and her young son were denied seating dining service at the restaurant due to the son not meeting the dress code requirements. The video clearly shows the woman's son, an African-American young person, wearing athletic shorts and an Air Jordan shirt. The video also shows a Caucasian youth dressed similarly who was permitted to dine in the restaurant. This should never have happened. The manager seen in the video has been placed on indefinite leave. We are sickened by this incident. We sincerely apologize to Marsha Grant, her son, and everyone impacted by this painful incident. They go on and on and on. Explaining this, they said we've taken the time to gather the facts and repeatedly review the video and interview employees. As a result, we immediately revised our dress code policy so that children 12 years old and younger who are accompanied by an adult will not be subject to a dress code at any Atlas property. We have addressed the issue with all managers and key staff at all properties and have spoken to many stakeholders who have contacted us. Last line, we know we failed in this instance and sincerely hope to be afforded the opportunity to meet with Marsha Grant and her son, who both deserve better.
We are so tired. I mean, you know, the interesting thing is this is just one of those moments that was caught on camera, and she had, you know, a white youth that she was able to prove, you know, that this is unequal and this is not fair. But how many times do we not have our cameras readily available? Or how many times do we know we saw someone walk in the back of the restaurant that has on the same attire, but we're being denied access? These things happen in restaurants. It happens at nightclubs. I'm in no way surprised. Business as usual, dining while black. We can make a little acronym for that because we know our experiences are different wherever we go. And that's just the reality of us having black skin living in a racist, white supremacist country. I'm glad that they made a public statement. But again, what would have happened if she wouldn't have been able to record it?
And again, what you're dealing with here is like, you know I can see him. Like... he's right there. Oh, no. That's not an athletic shirt. That's a T-shirt. But it's not an athletic shirt. Okay, I got this one here, y'all. Okay. If you're gonna spray paint White Lives Matter, okay, just play it.
This cannot be real. And then get out here. Get the fuck out here. This can't be real.
Watch y'all play that one more time, just in case y'all could not properly make out the letters in white.
This cannot be real. And then get out here. Get the fuck out here. This can't be real.
Malik, Wighte. Are they from Mississippi?
You can't even. No, Roland. Don't do that.
What? I'm just checking.
They can't even spell. Let's start there. You can't even spell your own ethnicity. So just stop. These type of things. First of all, I think it's pretty clear that the people who were recording, they were also white. So no, this is not how all white people are. Just like it's not how all black people are with certain things.
Maybe the person with the spray can is a Trump University graduate.
Was that didn't they close that, or was that actually a real thing?
That's your guy.
This is ridiculous, and that previous one with the young lady and the whole Air Jordan thing, that's one that really struck a chord with me, because I am one who, as oftentimes, there's definitely a difference, and not to say that black women don't experience this, but definitely with black men. I know the difference in how I'm received if I'm wearing what I'm wearing right now and what I'm wearing when I'm going out somewhere. So that could be J's, that could be, a pair of sweats, that could be a hoodie, that could be anything. And I've seen how people respond to me, and I've been in those type of situations. And it's one of those things that's so infuriating that I have to literally go through breathing exercises when it happens, because I know where I've been places and I've seen people where they've said, well, you have to take your hoodie off. And I'm literally with my own eyes, looking at people in a restaurant, in some place of business, white people with their hoodies and stuff on. So this is not something that happens all the time, but it's enough that it just reminds you of what having black skin like mine looked like. And when I say black skin, of course, all black skin is black skin, but identifiable, I'm from Wakanda black skin, no confusion about my color. This is what we have to deal with. It is so infuriating.
Wighte.
You don't even know how to spell.
All right, Amisha, I'll say this last one for you. This is probably one of the wildest Karens we've had to encounter.
Karen, are you okay?
I understand what happened.
Can you explain to me calmly?
No, because you're attacking me right now.
I'm not attacking you. Ma'am, you flicked me off.
You're ready to take it.
Guys, this is her license plate number. She lives here. This is her address.
No, this is not true. No.
Karen, you flipped me off.
No,
you cut me off and flipped me off, and now you're playing the victim. Ma'am, would you like to calm down?
No, you're attacking me right now without even.
Guys, she flipped me off. She literally flipped me off, and then she tried to come home. She's Karen. Karen, would you like to calm down and have a conversation? Why you? Am I attacking her? Ma'am, I'm not attacking you. You flipped me off and you thought you could get away with it. You didn't think I would find you.
No. I will talk to you if you will stop. Oh my God.
She can apologize for calling me a nigger and flipping me off. I'm trying to talk to you. My name is Carlos. Would you like to speak to me? This is what we get. Ma'am, why are you sitting here crying? What have I done to you? Ma'am, what have I done to you?
You're gonna ruin my life and you don't even know me.
So you can go around the city and flip people off and cut me off. So you didn't flip me off. Ma'am, I'm trying to let you talk. Do you know her? You cannot sit. She literally flipped me off. She cut me off. I have it on camera. She flipped me off 3 blocks away, and then she slammed on her brakes. I have it on my Instagram. And then I got on my car. I was like, ma'am, why are you following me? Why? She literally followed me. So then I followed her back home, and I said, ma'am, why are you harassing me? Ma'am, listen for about what? Can I speak to
you? You're going to ruin my life and you don't even know me. See, Amisha, I keep trying to tell these white folk, y'all might want to stop acting a fool. Now, she did all that screaming, covered up her license plate. Boo, you've gone viral. You've gone viral. But again, there are these people who think they can call us the N-word, treat us like crap, but when they get hit with this is the great equalizer. And I'm sorry, I have absolutely no compassion for her.
She wasn't bothered by anything except the fact that this was going to be released. If she was so worried, she would not have cut this man off, called him the N-word, followed him, because this was, you know, in his iteration, he was following her back. She was more afraid of being identified and outed for exactly what she did than she was bothered by her own activities. Then she gets down in the fetal position and starts, you know, wailing and acting like she was so afraid as though this man was charging at her or beating her or something. He's standing many yards back and recording. At the end of the day, it frustrates me that there are a lot of white people who are more afraid of a camera being shown after they've committed said racist acts than they are of committing said racist acts to begin with. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that the veil of the camera today has been lifted and that corporations, businesses, friends and neighbors and everyone else is paying attention to people for doing their everyday white racist things.
And again, I just keep trying to explain to these people, Brittany. If y'all go out there acting a fool, your ass might be featured in Crazy Ass White People segment.
Listen, sure will. And that's on them. I mean, I love Amisha's point. At the end of the day, she didn't care about what she did. She didn't care about being the racist Karen that she was. She cared that she was about to get caught. She was going to go viral and she potentially could lose her job. That's all she cared about. And I've never seen anything like that. Was an adult throwing a full-on tantrum. That man was nowhere near her. And the scary part is, let the wrong person have been there or let him not got it on camera. The way that she was wailing, if the police showed up, we know how that goes. Scary times.
Pola can't, but did y'all miss the part where she said, I have a black husband? Y'all missed that part?
Yes, I missed that. Oh, wow.
Y'all got to pay attention, y'all. She said in her wailing, I have a black husband.
No.
Does she call him a nigga too?
I have no idea, but all I'm saying is, you know. So here's the deal. I was going to end the show on that one. But yesterday we had Gary Chambers Jr. You know, yesterday he talked about Connie. I couldn't resist. I just got to hear Connie one more time.
Next. So I had intended to get up here and talk about how racist Robert E. Lee was, but I'm going to talk about you, Connie. Sitting over there shopping while we talking about Robert E. Lee. This is a picture of you shopping while we talking about racism and history in this country. Only white members of this board got up while we were up here talking too, because you don't give a damn, and it's clear. But I'm going to tell you what the slaves, my ancestors, said about Robert E. Lee, since you don't know history, sister. Let me tell you that they said when he got the plantation, after he got off the field where 27,000 people died at Gettysburg, Connie, Robert E. Lee was a brutal slave master. Not only did when he whooped the slaves, he said, lay it on them hard. After he said, lay it on them hard, he said, put brine on them so it'll burn them. That's what Robert E. Lee did. And you set your arrogant self in here and sit on there shopping while the pain and the hurt of the people of this community is on display, because you don't give a damn and you should resign. You should have resigned 2 years ago when you choked a white man in his house. You should have resigned 2 weeks ago when you got on TV and said foolishness. And you should walk out of here and resign and never come back, because you are the example of racism in this community. You are horrible. Now to the rest of the board. You have an obligation to the people of this community, and 81% of them are black. And do you need a Klan rally outside, Mr. Godet, before you end it? Because holding it up means that you put that building in jeopardy. You do, sir. Because all over the country, they're burning stuff down. And black folks in this city have stood with protesters. I ain't seen you elected officials out there with them, making sure that nothing goes south in Baton Rouge. It's been folks in this community who give a damn. not just when it's comfortable, but every time. And 4 years ago, we came down here. Mr. Drake, they say you're a good man. Be a good man. Black folks say you're a good man. White folks say you're a good man. Your legacy is attached to tonight, brother. Your legacy. Now,
minute 15.
The black members of the board. It's the most solidarity I've seen out of y'all in forever. Let's keep it that. Let's stand on this moving forward. Because we don't need to apologize for Connie, Evelyn. She showed you who she was when she was sitting next to you while you were talking shopping. You don't need another example.
We got to apologize for Connie, Evelyn.
Now, when do we as Baton Rouge stop being in 1856? If you want to name the building after somebody, how about PBS Pinchback, the first black governor of the state of Louisiana, when he was governor during Reconstruction? You want another name? Oscar Dunn, who was the lieutenant governor of the state of Louisiana in the 1860s, that gave the right for Darius Landis and Don Collins and Evelyn Ware Jackson and Tremel Howard to get here. You want to name it after somebody from Reconstruction? Name it after the people who fought for abolition of slavery. If you want to name it after somebody, honor the right people, the people who are on the right side of history. But it's your ancestor that the school is named after.
15.
So you're holding on to your heritage. But we built this joint for free. And we've done begging you to do what's right.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Drop the mic.
Hey.
Wow.
You hit it, Evelyn?
We need one of him in
Get on the show,
every
Roland.
council meeting.
Have you invited him on the show?
Your ass late. He was on yesterday.
Oh, damn.
He was on yesterday. You late. Hell yeah, I had him on. Connie! All right, y'all, I got to go. Pam, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Hey, y'all, don't forget, support our Bring the Funk fan club. Cash out, $RM Unfiltered. Y'all, let's just be clear. Ain't no other show doing what we do. That's just, it's not going to happen, okay? It's just not going to happen. Morning Joe can't do this here. R. Melba can't do this. Matt Al, Chris Hayes can't do this here. You ain't going to see no Chris Cuomo, no Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer. It ain't going to happen with Lawrence. Not going to happen with Martha McCallum and Shannon Bream and Tucker and Laura and Sean. This is where we keep it real, where we keep it black, and we keep it honest, and we're going to keep doing that. But we need you supporters by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Pull the graphic up. People on YouTube are telling me to show it one more time. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Of course, you can also mail us New Vision Media, Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. And guess what? Everybody who gives $50 or more, you get a personal shout out from me right here on the show. So I'm going to call your name. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. We're 1,800 away from 10,000. Y'all, it's 5,000 of y'all on YouTube. We can actually break that tonight. Let's make it happen. We keep it real. We keep it black. Sorry about the power outage a little bit earlier. Those things happen, but we'll get it taken care of. I will see you guys tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.